Welcome back to Astroline. Todd Callis and Steve Sparks from Pluckers. We're glad to be joined by Ryne Stanek, the newest member of the Houston Astros bullpen. Ryne, first of all, welcome and tell us about the process of being a free agent and signing with the team for the first time and how you chose Houston.
Thank you. I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot more stressful than I thought. Being a free agent was, I don't know, the ability to choose where you go play is not something that obviously most people are used to right off the bat. I mean, my first time being a free agent, so it was kind of a stressful decision because obviously picking a new place to live and a new team, and I mean, choosing a division and a team that fits like what you want to do and the way you play and everything. It ended up being a lot more in depth than I had initially thought it would be. But I mean, the guys in Houston made me really feel welcome, and the pitching guys are obviously really, really good, and they know their stuff, and they're at the forefront of analytics and pitching development, everything like that. I thought that was going to be a really good fit for me, and the city of Houston is awesome. I've been there a handful of times. I've got some friends there and heard nothing but good things. So it was it seemed like a kind of a no-brainer.
How much was James Click being the general manager an influence? And when it came down to it, how many teams were seriously in the mix for you?
Honestly, James was a big factor because obviously there's a comfort factor there, knowing like just having a relationship with somebody that you're going to be working with, however you want to characterize it, is obviously a plus. Like just some familiarity over the course of the whole time. There's probably 12 to 15 teams that had called, and probably like, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 that were like really in the mix, I guess. And then we kind of narrowed it down to like 3 or 4 at the very end, and then made a decision.
When James Click was talking about you after you signed, one of the things that stood out for me was that he keeps talking about there's big outs out in our bullpen, and Ryne Stanek fits right into who we see as somebody who can get some big outs. Talk to that confidence that Click gives you in coming into this bullpen.
I love it. I love that he has confidence in me, because that's the same confidence that I have in myself. And like those are the outs that I want to be in there to get, and I want to be able to be a big part of this and go out there and win ball games. Like obviously I feel like it's kind of cliche, but that's what I want. That's what kind of drives me as a competitor, is to be in those situations and help the team in that way. So it makes me feel really good that he feels the same way that I feel, and that he thinks that's where I'll be.
What was the 3-batter minimum like for you last year? That was new. It seemed like a lot of pitchers who were more specialists struggled with that, but you being such a hard thrower, you got the split-fingered fastball maybe to neutralize the lefties. How was it for you?
Honestly, I over the course of my career, like I'd never been like a 1-out, 2-out guy. And being, like you said, being kind of platoon neutral, it really didn't affect me a whole lot, which and obviously probably like is something that I feel like makes me a little bit more usable, versatile, valuable, I guess, whatever you want to put it. Just because it's something that I've done well over the course of my time.
New Astro Ryne Stanek is our guest on Astroline. What a year it was in 2020 for the Miami Marlins. Of all the teams impacted by COVID-19, no team was more impacted than the Marlins, and you somehow overcame that and made a run into the postseason and got by the first round. When you look back on 2020, that had to be one of the more remarkable team seasons you've been a part of.
Yeah, one of the wildest that I've ever witnessed, and hopefully it was a fun season, and it was cool to make the playoffs, and it was a big team accomplishment that we had with Miami last year. But it's definitely one that I hope we don't have to repeat anytime soon. That was the longest 60 games I feel like anybody's ever been a part of, with all the play and all the protocols and everything. It'll be nice when everything starts to, whenever that may be, calm down and get back to like a true normal.
And there was a point there too where you guys advanced in the playoffs. All your boys from the Tampa Bay Rays are advancing, and they end up winning the AL championship. Obviously, there had to be mixed emotions. You're excited as well as you did in the season, and then you see all your guys have all that success, and you're like, wait, I could have been there. How was it for you going through that 2020 postseason?
Yeah, it was a little bittersweet, obviously, but like they're like I have so many good friends on that team and the organization that like I was just happy for them. Like it's a good group of guys there, and they earned it. That group has been through a lot and worked really hard and came up together. And I would say most or a lot of those guys have played together since like AA, high A. Like there's a lot of those guys that have spent a lot of time together over the years. So to see everything like come together for them was pretty cool.
How hard was it to get traded that first time? You'd come up, you'd gotten drafted a first rounder with the Rays in 13. You were with them for such a long time. How hard was that? Did it hurt your feelings? Was it a sad moment when you left?
It was, yeah, it was, because it was something that like I had been through so much with the organization. Obviously they drafted me and I got a chance with them. And obviously like I said, I had so many friends there that like just to leave and get traded in the midst of a playoff run was tough. And like I never had to like go to a team, so I didn't really know how that whole thing worked. So there was a lot of like anxiety and like stress to go along with that. I got traded off the DL, so it was a little bit like of a grindy period right there where you're trying to get back into game shape and everything, and then like you have to adjust and meet a bunch of new people, and like it just was a lot. And it was definitely a lot harder than I had initially expected to be traded, because I mean, most people just see us as ball players and we're just pieces to be moved around, but like everybody's got families and people they care about and friends and houses and animals and stuff like that you're like, well, we have 2 days to get to the new team, and you're like, I have to make all these plans so fast. It's a lot to go through, which like I didn't realize, which I guess I should have, being in the league for a while and seeing it so much. But like when you live it yourself, it's a lot more complicated than you initially expect.
And as a free agent this time, you said one of the things that you were looking for in a team once they got serious was the analytics. And everybody knows that the Astros are near the top of the list for all the analytics. You just feel comfortable with that?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the mold of I guess development,
the way it's going,
whatever. Yeah, that it's going that way, and it's what I came up in. Like Tampa obviously is another organization that's very much in the forefront of that realm. So it's definitely a comfort factor. Obviously with James there, that's something that's obviously been a focus, and it will continue to be a focus. And just trying to maximize your ability and maximize what you do well is something that like I obviously think is super valuable and super important to becoming a better player and constantly adapting and evolving and making yourself better. So that's a big factor into it. Yeah.
You were a guy who was getting big outs at the back end of the bullpen for Tampa Bay, and then you transition kind of as the game has evolved with the opener, and you become famous for being the opener, where they actually had a bottle opener giveaway for you in Tampa Bay. I want to know, A, do you still have any of those bottle openers? And B, how do you go through a day knowing that from the first pitch until about half an hour after a game, your day's going to be done? Like, how do you no player goes into a game thinking 7 o'clock first pitch, I'm going to be finished by 7:30 at the latest.
Yeah, I actually have a lot of them. They gave me a big old box of them, and like, cause all my family wanted one. So when my parents actually were in town for it, which was kind of funny. And I just sent the whole box with them. I think there's a couple at the house maybe, but, it was actually like initially it was so weird and I didn't know what to do with my time. So like I would throw and like go in and do my arm care, and then I would be like kind of wander back out to the dugout and like feel awkward sitting in the dugout because I'm a reliever, and I was like just in the dugout from inning 3 to 9. So I felt like I was just like blocking people who were actually still working. And wow, it just got to be like something that we did so much that it just became normal. So it was a weird feeling being in the dugout for so long. You always felt like you were in somebody's way because you were already completely done and no chance that you could go back into the game. So it was pretty cool though.
The Sparky's often talked about the bond you have with your bullpen mates. Was it almost like you were the trader in that bullpen when you became the opener?
Not so much a trader, but I felt like I was way more friendly with position players than I ever had been. I was way more social because I would talk to the bullpen guys like on days that I was down there, and then like I'd hang out with all the position players for 6 innings, like in a normal day or in an opener day. So it definitely was something that was a little weird, and I got to hang out and spend a lot more time with all the rest of the guys than just the bullpen guys.
Hey Ryne, you've always had a lot of expectations because you've been a hard thrower, and it kind of started your first game your senior year in high school. You remember this pretty well, right?
Yeah, I do.
You touched a certain number, and a lot of people started, and there was a buzz around your name when you hit 96 that game. Where did that come from? And what were you thinking at the time that you had to get really excited?
Honestly, I didn't even know. I didn't even find out until like maybe 35, 45 minutes after the game. And the guy that I worked with, like pitching wise, had called me and was like, "Hey, do you know what you were throwing today?" And I was like, "Dude, I have no idea." It was like 30 degrees and windy, and
Really?
and it was just like it was just a miserable weather day in Kansas, like fall or spring baseball. It was always like so cold the first couple weeks. And he was like, "Yeah, you're throwing like 96 today." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so like, and I was a guy that was probably supposed to get drafted at some point in high school, and then that really kind of changed up everything a lot, which was
Yeah.
pretty cool, also pretty stressful too.
And pretty enticing. The Mariners offered you $800,000, and you turned it down because you wanted to go to the College World Series. You wanted to go to Arkansas. But Jordan Shipers,
Yep.
he benefited more than anybody. Tell everybody about Jordan Shipers.
I mean, we had played together, or not played together, but played against each other for a while. And I mean, I don't know if he really benefited, but like he basically signed for, I think it was like exactly what I was offered from Seattle. So yeah, I mean,
he was a 13th rounder and almost got $1 million because you left all that money on the table, right?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. That was a wild time. The draft is a trip. It's definitely something that seems a lot more fun than it actually is when you're going through it, I feel like.
Coming full circle now here to Houston, you kind of follow in a former Arkansas Razorbacks footsteps, Dallas Keuchel, who pitched here for many years and had great success. But you still live in Tampa, and there's a few guys with Tampa connections that are currently on the Astros. Do you have any people that you know on this current Astros team very well?
I know Bregman a little bit. Like we played against each other in college, and obviously in the big leagues, and did the Futures game together. And then like I actually live down the street from Kyle Tucker, so that's pretty cool. I've known him for a few years. He actually kind of gave me the inside scoop on the organization, so that made the decision a little bit easier, I feel like. Obviously, like I know Preston too, his brother. I work out with Preston. But yeah, like I actually have been in contact with Lance a little bit, talking, like welcoming me to the team. Like seems like a great dude. So yeah, like I don't know a ton of guys, but I know a handful. Yeah.
And when you play video games with Kyle, I think I saw in an article your gamer handle is still OPigSui5.
Yeah.
Did you know before you went to Arkansas that you wanted to go to Arkansas? Because it said you had this tag at age 16.
Yeah, that was actually when I committed. I literally, I didn't get X5 basically until I had already committed to go to college. And me being 16 and stupid, I didn't realize that it was, I'd never like really been there a whole lot. So like, I thought it was Pig Suey was the call. It's Whoop Suey, which as soon as I got there, I realized I was an idiot, and that was something up. And it was like, I think it was like $20 to change my tag, and there's no point in changing it now. I've had it for like 13 years. There's no reason to change the tag now.
That's so funny. All right, Brent Strom, he's your pitching coach. I don't know if you've spoken to him yet, but I would imagine as a recruiting tool for any pitcher coming over to the organization, you say Brent Strom, you perk your ears up and you listen a little bit, don't you?
Oh, for sure, for sure. His reputation across the league is impeccable, and the knowledge he brings to the table is top notch. So it's definitely a big perk to have the ability to work with someone like him.
We always hear about pitchers coming over to the Astros, and there's been a lot of success stories. One of your former teammates, Charlie Morton, was one of them, but they go through a little meeting, with some of the people in the analytics department. Have they spoken to you yet?
Yeah. I talked to him a little bit. I think we'll get more in depth as we, or when we get into camp.
Sure.
But they broke down some things that they would like to see, and that they think I should focus on, like in my bullpen work and stuff like that. So it's definitely an advantage to have all the information behind you and have someone like Strom to like kind of guide you in the right direction.
You mentioned the transition going from Tampa Bay to Miami, not only all the guys you grew up with in the minor leagues, but your pitching coach, Kyle Snyder, so influential for you. When you look back at your last couple of years with the Marlins, you got traded off of the injured list. You mentioned that you had a hip issue. Then you had the little back issue last year, and that had to be tough, not knowing when the season was going to start. How do you describe your last couple of years with the Marlins, and maybe your walk numbers weren't where you wanted? What was the difference between where you were in Tampa Bay when you were like 2.53 strikeouts per walks and what happened in Miami?
I think a lot of it, honestly, was just getting back to feeling like myself. Like, obviously being banged up a little bit, like it kind of shifted some things delivery wise, and like trying to like get back on course with where I was trying to be physically kind of took a bit longer than I had expected. And like, as I kind of went on, the back issue kind of popped up, and it was just like, it just kind of seemed like one thing after another, like over like a short period of time, where I was just like kind of fighting an uphill battle. And I finally like got to a point at the end of, at last year, before I went down with COVID, that I finally started to feel like myself again. And then I missed 5 or 6 weeks, like with COVID. And then I was like, all right, now I have to like go sit in a room by myself for like 3 weeks, and then you have to build back up in a couple weeks to get back into playing. And it just seemed like one thing after another kind of popped up. And as soon as I started to feel right, that would happen. And then I finally really felt like myself again in the playoffs. Like, I finally started to like kind of click on all cylinders again the last couple games of the season. And then we finished the year in Houston against the Braves, and I threw a couple times there, and I like that was like the first time I was like, all right, like that's what I'm supposed to be throwing. Like, it just felt physically right again.
And you'll get the chance to be back on this mound at Minute Maid Park, where you got to play in college, right?
Yeah. I've had a fair bit of opportunity to pitch in Minute Maid over the course of my time. I played there in college and the playoffs, and obviously in season and stuff. So that's definitely a mound that I've grown pretty fond of over the years.
Ryne, last thing from me. You just threw a bullpen session. You're outside of the building right now. Mentally, where are you right now? Not knowing exactly when you guys might start again, but are you going after it pretty hard, or are you just taking it easy?
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of a fine line at this point, because with the uncertainty, but realistically, I have to prepare like nothing's going to change. Like, and it's unfortunate that that's the case, because it's like, yeah, obviously knowing exactly what's going on would be a plus. But I mean, I'm expecting to be in camp on the 17th, I think, or the 18th.
Yeah, 17th, 18th.
Yeah, one of those days. I'm expecting that to be the first day of camp, and I'm going to prepare like that's the case. And if we get word that that's going to be pushed back or whatever may be the case, it's like, yeah, I might slow down the bullpens. I might throw maybe one a week just to stay sharp or whatever.
Less intensity.
Yeah, just to kind of just make sure I'm where I want to be and keep on track.
Ryne, thanks for the time. Can't wait to see you in an Astros uniform, and we'll see you soon.
Of course. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryne. And welcome back, Astro fans. This is Steve Sparks, and I'm with Todd Callis, of course. And you're listening to Astroline, and we've got a guest with us, an old friend and a very welcome old friend, and it's Jason Castro, whom the Astros just signed to a 2-year deal last week. First of all, Jason, man, welcome back to Houston, Texas. We're thrilled to have you back.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm, very excited to be back, and really looking forward to getting going.
All right. The question I have is, you left after the 2016 season. You set up shop in Houston. You had bought a home here in Houston when you were playing with the Astros, and you decided to stay here in the off seasons. What was the big reason for that?
Part of it was the city. We definitely loved our time here. When I played here, we had kids here and kind of set some roots down. So, we were looking at some options and at the end of it, we decided to stay and we were glad we made that decision.
Kind of unusual how much things change. I guess it's natural, but 4 years can be a long time. A lot of new faces since you were last here, but Carl Schneider still runs the clubhouse. You have your old locker back?
I don't know. We haven't talked about that. I actually talked to him yesterday. Those sorts of details haven't been worked out yet, but we'll see. I went in the other day and saw a lot of the the same clubhouse staff guys, and it's good to see all those guys and a few of the same staff members around, coaches and stuff, and some players that are still on the team from my last time here, but. Looking forward to seeing those guys again, meeting all the new guys, and kind of hitting the ground running in spring.
Jason, we're all looking for some information, and it's still kind of ambiguous as to when exactly things are going to roll. Are you planning as if you're going to be heading down to Florida in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think from a player standpoint, we are anticipating a normal start. We haven't heard otherwise or been directed otherwise. So, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm telling people who ask, get ready to prepare and to plan as a normal spring training should start.
Jason, what do you do to stay ahead of the curve before you even get to spring training? I would imagine you're getting to try to know some of these new pitchers. Do you talk to them personally? You just look at video, try to get some ideas from Brent Strom? Where does that lie?
Yeah, a lot of that stuff happens, especially like those in-person talks. That stuff happens when you get down to camp. Video definitely helps. There's plenty of it, readily available online to see, pitch movements and things like that. And you kind of really get a sense of how a guy likes to work, where his mind's at when you talk to him in person, especially when you start catching like his live bullpens early on and just hearing the things that are going through their mind, like in between innings of their outings. I find that to be the most helpful, just kind of see how their brain works and what they're thinking on and what they kind of fall back to when they're out on the mound.
What did you learn when you went to Minnesota? You were there for 3 years, obviously coming from a team like the Astros who are bent so far toward the sabermetrics and the analytics. Was it a little different when you went to Minnesota?
Initially, yes. But the transition there, I think everybody's kind of caught up. Houston was
right.
One of the early adopters, obviously, of a lot of the advanced metrics and different ways of thinking about game planning and those sorts of things. So we saw that transition when I was there. Pitching coach, especially my last couple of years, pitching coach Wes Johnson and now bullpen coach with the Mets, Jeremy Hefner. Those guys did a tremendous job of kind of revolutionizing the way that they thought about pitching and the game planning. And you definitely saw the strides that those pitchers made. Some of the young guys over there, Jose Barrios, one of them, Taylor Rogers, closer, left-handed pitcher. They had a lot of guys that made some huge strides in that in that time. And I think a lot of it has to do with just understanding what, their best weapons were and how to utilize them most efficiently.
And then you make the move from Minnesota to the Angels opening day catcher last year, back in the AL West. So you saw some of these Astros pitchers. You talk about pitch movement and pitch shapes. You saw a lot of these pitchers as a hitter. It had to be a tough adjustment because a lot of these guys you were seeing for the first time. So many rookies on this Astros staff. How was it last year facing this group?
Yeah, it was one of the questions I asked early on when I signed here was, what I thought about some of the pitchers that we had seen from last year, just being such a young group of pitchers. And one thing that stands out to me that I remember was just kind of the raw talent that was down there. I mean, didn't seem to matter who they brought out of the pen. There was just guys who had really good stuff. And I remember a few specific at bats where I remember striking out one at bat on 3 straight curveballs from Strummer, thinking like, what was that? Like, it's just really, really tough to see out of the hand, incredible movement. And so it's nice to see. Obviously there's a lot of talent down there. Just kind of getting those guys to figure out, how to be consistent and making those next strides is huge.
Getting a full spring training obviously will be a nice benefit for you to learn these guys. Was last year the most difficult challenge, having an in-season trade to the Padres?
Yeah, first time I've been traded, having to kind of pick up and really hit the ground. I mean, just it was a unique experience. I mean, especially with the position that they were in, playoff position, they were fighting and trying to get in there and learn those guys as soon as possible. It was tough, but we made it work, and it was a good experience and something I'd never done and gone through before, but getting over to that team and being a part of that was pretty cool. I mean, that was a fun group of guys, a lot of energy, a lot of young guys. And it was a cool experience to be a part of, for sure.
We're talking with Jason Castro, the Astros catcher. And Jason, I remember in 2017, the first year that you were with the Minnesota Twins, you had just left the Astros. I remember a lot of the players were really excited to come see you in Minnesota. I think you guys went out to lunch. I remember just that there was a lot of pitchers, McHugh and McCullers and Keuchel. A lot of guys were really sorry that you were gone. You guys were really close. And I'm curious on this end of it. Was it tough in some way watching the success of that team? And of course, they went on to win the World Series that year, knowing that you could have been a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of how things go. I mean, there's kind of an ebb and a flow to, the path of organizations. And, I just was at the part of it where, I was at the beginning of the rebuild and kind of saw it through. I mean, we obviously had a great year in 2015 and surprised a lot of people. And so you could see the kind of upward trajectory of the organization. And obviously I was gone, after the 2016 season, but knowing that, I had kind of helped some of those pitchers kind of get to where they needed to be for that sustained success. That was cool to watch. And, I was really proud of, the strides that, Lance and Colin and Dallas made and continue to make, and, the next steps in their careers. And, while I wasn't a part of the team, I definitely watched and was happy for, those guys that were able to put that run together.
What's your family look like now? I know you and your wife Maris had a son and a daughter at one point. Is that where you stand right now?
Yeah, that's where we stand. Our son is he'll be 5 in May, and our daughter turned 2 a few months ago. So keeping us busy for sure. Our son starts Little League this year, and
Wow.
he'll be on the Astros too. So he's pretty excited about that.
Very nice.
Yeah. That's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Back with the Astros, where you had the most service of your 10 years, getting to 10 years of Major League service is a huge deal. I know in the clubhouses it's celebrated, not as much publicly, but for you getting to 10 years last year, did that happen with the Angels, with the Padres? I know with Brantley, they had a nice little deal for him in the Astros clubhouse last year. Where did it happen for you?
Yeah, it happened with the Angels. Actually, kind of towards the end of my time with them, but they did a nice little recognition of that benchmark, and it was kind of a special thing. And it's definitely something I'll remember for sure.
And as we said, the majority of your time here, and now you're back with the Astros. When you look at the numbers that go on the scoreboard the last couple of years, and then the numbers, if you lift the hood, are completely different. Your hard hit rate, your barrel rate, off the charts compared to where you've been before. Do you feel like you're hitting the ball better the last couple of years than maybe even your All-Star year with the Astros?
Yeah, I mean, I think the last few years, like you said, some of the I guess the analytic numbers, when you kind of dive into it, showed a change, and I've been, really happy with the adjustments that I've made, and not necessarily the best luck, and it's been kind of frustrating to kind of have those mismatch with the way those numbers played out. But at the end of the day, that's really all you can do, and just trust in your process and know that you're doing the right things, and it is what it is. So, from a personal standpoint, I feel really good about it, and everything else can take care of itself.
On the offensive side, Jason, you're 33 now, and you made some adjustments, and you saw that uptick in the exit velocity and all that. What did you do to get to that position?
I think the biggest thing for me was it actually wasn't really much of a swing thing. It was more of a balance and kind of pre-pitch setup in the way that I try to kind of hold tension in my body to read pitches a little bit easier and longer, and to give myself more time in the box and not have to cheat so much.
Like you preset with things?
Yeah, I mean, just the way I load and kind of store my weight as I'm reading the pitch kind of allowed me to read pitches longer and not kind of put myself physically in a position to where I wasn't even able to get like a solid swing off if it wasn't the pitch that I was looking for. So It was mostly for me a balance issue.
Last thing from me, Jason, as a taller catcher, I know from experience that a lot of times those catchers had a harder time with the lower pitch in the strike zone as far as framing it. But you become one of the best framers in baseball. How did you overcome your height to become a good framer on the low pitch?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to kind of realize for me when I made that switch was it was at first kind of an approach change in the way I thought about catching pitches. And then once I kind of made that switch in my head, it was, okay, now I know how I want to attack the pitch. Now, how do I best orient myself, in the catcher's box behind the plate to put me in the best position to catch the pitch, how I'm thinking about how I want to catch it. So, a lot of kind of drilling went into that, and some tinkering about how best to, get under the ball and kind of, allowed myself to work freely to catch pitches and do it over the course of the season. Obviously you can get in positions that help you catch, but take a toll on your body. So
and every pitcher's different, so the movement is tough.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, lefties, righties, you kind of have to play around with catching and positioning yourself in different ways, knowing how guys pitch. A lot of guys aren't pitching down in the zone anymore, and so you take that into account based on kind of how that stacks up. So there's a lot of variables that go into it, but you can drill those and practice those once you kind of have an understanding of what you want to do.
Final thing from me, Jason, Martin Maldonado is going to be a guy that you work with in tandem. He had some big swings for the Astros last year, but he's such a defensive savant. Are you looking forward to picking his brain and working? You guys have both been around for a little while, picking his brain and working together with him.
Yeah, I've talked to him a little bit already, and definitely excited to get going with him and just hearing how he thinks. I mean, he's been around the league for a long time, and he's been on some good teams around, and just another guy that's got that experience and experiences that you can lean on and go back and forth about, things that work for him, the way that he thinks about things, game calling and those sorts of things are going to be huge.
Well, Jason, we're super excited to have you back. I know the Astros pitchers are in really good hands with that tandem. So welcome back. Tell your parents hello, man. We miss them. And have a nice next month or so before spring training rolls around.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.